She demanded half my house, then brought in a lawyer and her parents. I bought a house with my own savings, paid the full down payment myself, and right after that, my girlfriend started insisting she should be listed as an equal owner. When I told her no, she didn't just drop it, she went out and got a lawyer and pulled her parents into it, trying to pressure me into adding her name to the deed. But before I dive into all that, let me say this, I've noticed the channel's been slowing down a bit lately. If you're here and you like these stories, hitting that subscribe button is the easiest way to show support. It's fast, it's free, and it really helps keep this community growing strong. Marissa and I have been together for 3 years now. We moved in together about 2 years back, settling into this tiny, rundown apartment. It wasn't much to look at, honestly, it was kind of a dump, but we made it work. We split everything straight down the middle, 50-50ths. Sure, I make more money than she does, but I didn't mind splitting the bills evenly. That always felt fair enough to me, and I never made a fuss about it. Marissa has a steady job and brings in a decent paycheck, but it doesn't really compare to what I make working in tech. I've been climbing the ladder over the past few years, and my income's been growing because of it. Around 8 months ago, we started tossing around the idea of buying a house together. Rent prices had gotten out of hand, and it felt like we were just burning money every single month, with nothing to show for it. I'd been saving for a down payment for a long time and had built up a solid chunk. On top of that, my credit score was excellent, so I knew getting approved for a mortgage wouldn't be an issue. Marissa was totally into the idea. We started browsing houses online, going to open houses on the weekends, just getting excited about it. Honestly, in the beginning, it felt like this real turning point for us, like we were planning our future as a couple. But then things started getting messy. And even now, I'm not 100% sure I handled it perfectly, but I really do think I made the right call. Once we got serious about actually putting offers in, I sat down with a mortgage broker. They ran the numbers and told me that if I applied by myself, I could qualify for way more than if we applied jointly. The reason? Marissa still has some student loan debt, and her credit score isn't terrible, but it's definitely not as good as mine. The broker said that together, we'd probably only get approved for around $350,000. But if I applied alone, I could get the green light for up to $500,000. That meant we could look at better houses in nicer neighborhoods, ones we'd actually want to live in. So I laid it all out for Marissa. At first, she wasn't happy. She said it felt strange that I'd be the only one on the mortgage, and that she wouldn't have any legal claim to the property. I tried to explain that just because the paperwork was in my name didn't mean it wasn't our home. We were going to live in it together, build a life there together, and that's what mattered most, right? I also pointed out the practical side of things. If we stuck to that $350,000 budget, we'd be looking at older homes that needed a ton of work or houses in sketchy neighborhoods. But if I got approved for more on my own, we could afford something nicer, somewhere we'd both actually be proud to call home. After I explained it all, she seemed to get it. We agreed that I'd apply for the mortgage alone. I ended up putting down $75,000, which was basically my entire life savings that I'd spent years building up. I also covered all the other major costs, inspection, closing fees, you name it. Marissa chipped in for a few of the smaller things, like the moving truck and some new furniture, but when it came to the heavy lifting financially, it was all on me. Eventually, we found this great place listed at $420,000. It was in a solid neighborhood, had good schools nearby, a big backyard, pretty much everything we were looking for. I got approved without a hitch, and over the next 2 months, we went through the whole home buying process together. Marissa was right there with me, helping pick everything out. She was just as excited as I was. But here's where the trouble really started, and maybe this is where I come off like the bad guy, but I honestly don't think I'm in the wrong. On the day of closing, Marissa suddenly brought up wanting to be added to the deed. I reminded her that we'd already talked about this and had agreed I'd be the sole person on the mortgage and the deed because of how the finances worked out. She told me she understood not being on the mortgage, but thought she'd still be added to the deed, so she'd have legal ownership. I told her that didn't make sense to me. She didn't put any money toward the down payment, didn't qualify for the loan, so why would she be given legal ownership of something she didn't actually invest in? I told her, look, this is your home too. You live here, and we're sharing a life. But ownership is different. If things went south between us, you could just walk away without owing anything but still own half the house? That just doesn't seem right. She got really quiet after that and said she needed time to think it over. Honestly, I figured that would be the end of the conversation. I thought I'd laid it out clearly enough that it made sense. But over the next few weeks, Marissa wouldn't let it go. She kept bringing it up, saying it felt like I was treating her more like a tenant than a real partner. That couldn't have been further from the truth. I never once asked her to pay rent. We split the utilities, groceries, and other household expenses, just like we always had. Nothing changed on that front. Then, about a month after we moved in, she said she wanted to start putting more money toward the mortgage payments, said it would make her feel like she was earning some equity in the place. I had to be honest with her. I explained that it doesn't work like that. The mortgage is tied to my name, my credit, and ultimately, my responsibility. Even if she started helping with the payments, it wouldn't give her legal ownership of the house. That's just not how mortgages or deeds work. I also told her, look, if she really wanted to put more money towards something meaningful, she'd be better off paying down her student loans first, especially since they had higher interest rates. That suggestion didn't go over well. That's when she really lost her temper. She started yelling, saying I was being controlling, and that I was treating her like a roommate instead of my girlfriend. She accused me of using the house to control her, like I was holding it over her head and making her feel unstable in our relationship. But that's not what I was doing at all. I was just being realistic about the financial and legal side of things. I tried to calm her down and told her this didn't change anything between us. We were still a couple, still building a life together. But she kept saying I was making all the big decisions without thinking about how she felt. And I didn't think that was fair. I mean, she was involved in choosing the house every step of the way. We picked it out together, planned it out together. The only part she wasn't part of was the financial side, and that was for a good reason. Things started to feel strained after that. Marissa began acting different when it came to money. She'd keep track of every little thing she spent, groceries, paper towels, even laundry detergent, and would throw in comments about how she was paying to live in my house. I told her she was being ridiculous. She never acted like that when we were renting and splitting everything evenly. It was like the whole dynamic shifted. Then, about a month ago, she brought up something new. She said her parents were willing to help her out with some money, around $50,000, so she could buy into the house and be added to the deed. Her folks are pretty well off, and they offered to give her the money as a gift so she could have some stake in the place. I told her, yeah, it was generous of them, but that kind of thing doesn't work after the fact. I'd already bought the house, paid the down payment, and taken on all the financial risk. Giving her a share of ownership now would be like rewriting history, and that didn't sit right with me. And I'll admit, maybe this is where I sound like the bad guy, but I've got to be honest. I don't want to be financially tied to her parents. If they give her that kind of money, and we break up down the line, what happens then? Do they expect me to pay it back? Do they think they get a say in what we do with the house? It just adds a whole new layer of mess I don't want to deal with. Marissa got upset again and accused me of not being committed to our relationship. She said if I really cared, I'd have no problem putting her name on the deed. I just stared at her, kind of shocked, and said, how is buying a whole damn house for us not commitment? But in her mind, the fact that her name wasn't on that piece of paper meant I was keeping an escape hatch open like I was planning to leave her someday. I told her if anyone had the right to feel nervous about commitment, it was me. Because if things fall apart, she can pack up and leave without any strings attached, while I'm stuck with a $400,000 mortgage and a house I might not even be able to afford alone. She argued that this was exactly why she wanted her name on the deed, so she could feel more secure in the relationship too. But that didn't really make sense to me. She hadn't taken on any of the risk up front. She didn't put a dime toward the down payment. So why should she be entitled to half of something I carried entirely on my back? This back and forth has been dragging on for months now, and it's taken a toll. Every time we argue about something, even totally unrelated stuff, it circles back to this house issue. She starts acting like I'm this financial dictator, like I'm lording it over her. Just last week, she told me she talked to her sister about it, and her sister apparently said I was being unfair. That couples should share ownership of big purchases, especially something like a home. But her sister doesn't know the full story. She has no idea that Marissa couldn't even qualify for the mortgage on her own. She doesn't know I fronted the entire down payment, or that I'm the one shouldering all the financial risk here. It's easy for people on the outside to pass judgment when they don't understand the actual details. I love Marissa. I really do. I want us to work. But at the same time, I've got to protect myself. I've worked my tail off to save up for this house, to build my credit, to get to a point where buying a home was even possible. And I just don't think it's fair for her to expect equal ownership when she didn't contribute equally, not financially anyway. Maybe I'm just too practical for my own good, but I've seen what can happen when couples split up and there's serious money or property involved. It gets ugly fast, messy, emotional, expensive, and I've got zero interest in putting myself in that kind of situation. If Marissa and I stay together for the long haul, sure, maybe we revisit the whole deed thing, like if we get engaged or married. But for now, I honestly think the way we've got it set up makes the most sense. I get that she's frustrated. I do. I understand why she feels a little uncertain, but I also think she's not being realistic about what she's actually entitled to. Just because we live under the same roof doesn't mean she automatically has a claim to everything I own. That's not how relationships or finances work. So yeah, I started wondering, am I the asshole here? Update 1. After I posted all this and read through a bunch of the comments, I started second-guessing myself. Some of the replies hit me hard, people saying I was being unfair or too rigid. And for a moment, I really started to feel guilty. I actually began considering the idea of maybe adding Marissa to the deed in some way, or at least trying to work out a compromise with her. That was the plan, anyway, until yesterday morning. I was getting ready for work, half asleep, just going through my normal routine, and Marissa was acting strange. Nervous. Fidgety. Like she had something on her chest and didn't know how to say it. I asked her what was going on, and she looked me dead in the eye and said she needed to tell me something important. And I instantly got that sinking feeling in my gut, the same one I get when I know bad news is coming. Then she dropped it. She'd been talking to a lawyer. Not casually or for basic advice, she'd actually been consulting with a lawyer about the house. And she never once told me. She explained that the lawyer basically confirmed what we already knew. Since we're not married, she doesn't have any legal claim to the house, even if she's been living here and helping with utilities or groceries. But then she said the lawyer also mentioned there might be a way for her to build some kind of equity claim if she could prove she'd contributed directly to mortgage payments or done work that improved the value of the home. That's when I stopped her and asked the obvious question, why would you go talk to a lawyer behind my back instead of coming to me first? She said she just wanted to understand her rights before we had any more discussions. But let's be real, nobody goes to a lawyer just in case unless they're thinking about using that info. That's not how people work. Then she told me the kicker. The lawyer suggested that if she started paying part of the mortgage and we had some kind of written agreement, she might be able to claim a portion of the house later on. So what that tells me is she wasn't just curious. She was looking for a way to force her way into ownership. I asked her flat out if that's what she was trying to do, find a legal route to get a stake in my house, and she insisted she was just exploring her options. But come on, That's a line people use when they know they're caught. You don't spend time and money talking to a lawyer unless you've already thought about the endgame. I told her I felt completely betrayed. This is our relationship, our home, our life. And she's out here going behind my back to a lawyer like I'm some landlord or business rival. She said she didn't see it as betrayal, she was just trying to get professional advice. But if that's all it was, why keep it a secret? Why wait until I asked what was wrong to say anything? She knew I'd be pissed, and that's exactly why she didn't bring it up sooner. And then came the real bombshell, her parents. Turns out, they're not just offering her money to buy into the house. They've also offered to loan her money to hire a lawyer, in case she wants to fight for legal ownership. At that point, I was done. I told her straight up, this right here, this sneaky, behind-the-scenes legal maneuvering, is exactly why I didn't want to put her name on the deed in the first place. Because now she's literally trying to find ways to legally backdoor her way into co-ownership of a house she didn't pay for. She kept denying it, saying that wasn't her intention. But let's be honest, the facts speak for themselves. We got into a huge fight. Like yelling, door slamming kind of fight. She ended up storming out and went to stay at her sister's place for the night. And honestly, I was relieved. I needed some space. I was so angry I couldn't even look at her without seeing red. This morning, she came back. She apologized for not telling me about the lawyer, said she knew she should have handled it differently. But then she circled back around and said she still thinks it's unfair and wants to find some kind of agreement where she can start building equity in the house. I told her, flat out, absolutely not. Especially not now. Not after all this. Not after trying to quietly lawyer up and force the issue behind my back. She called me unreasonable and said she just wants to feel secure not just in the relationship, but in where she lives. And I told her, you felt secure enough to go talk to a lawyer about me without even telling me. So clearly you're not thinking about this like we're a team. Because that's what this all comes down to. If we were really partners, we'd be handling this together. Not like opponents getting ready for court. What's really eating at me is how Marissa's been planning this whole thing while pretending she just wanted to have a calm, honest conversation about the house. Meanwhile, she was already talking to lawyers behind my back and getting her parents looped in. If she'd been upfront with me from the start, if she'd just said, hey, I'm thinking about talking to a lawyer, then maybe we could have actually worked something out. But now I feel like I can't trust her. And honestly, reading through all the comments on my first post just confirmed what my gut was telling me. I wasn't being paranoid or controlling, I was being careful, cautious. A lot of people said I should just add her to the deed to make her feel more secure, to show commitment. But look how fast things escalated the second I even started to consider it. She jumped straight to legal advice and backup from her parents. That's not a normal or healthy reaction. So no, I'm not adding her to the deed. I'm not setting up some equity sharing arrangement either. Especially not now. If she wants to own a house, she can do what the rest of us did, save up, get a loan, and buy one on her own. She's not going to get a stake in mine just because she found a lawyer willing to dig around for loopholes. I know this might come off harsh, but truthfully, I feel like I dodged a bullet. What if I'd added her to the deed 6 months ago? And then found out she was this quick to drag lawyers and her family into our private business? I'd be neck deep in a legal mess right now, trying to untangle something I never should have gotten into in the first place. Marissa's still staying with her sister, and I honestly don't know if she plans on coming back. Part of me hopes she does, because I do love her. I wanted a future with her. But there's another part of me that's seeing things a little clearer now, like maybe this whole thing revealed who she really is when things don't go her way. I guess time will tell. But one thing's for sure, I'm not changing my mind about the house. Update 2. So Marissa came back from her sister's place after 3 days. At first, things seemed alright. She apologized again about the lawyer stuff, said she wanted to try and fix things between us without getting anyone else involved. For a minute there, I actually believed maybe we could move past it, get back to normal. But yeah, that didn't last. She started getting weird about money. Like, obsessive. She was taking photos of grocery receipts, logging every dollar she spent on cleaning supplies, and even tracking her portion of the electric bill down to the literal cent. I finally asked her what the hell she was doing, and she told me she was keeping records of her financial contributions to the house, just in case it became relevant later. That set off all kinds of alarm bells. I told her she was being ridiculous and paranoid. But she said the lawyer had advised her to document everything if she wanted any shot at establishing a claim to the house. So even though she apologized and said she wanted to move forward, she was still taking legal advice and basically building a paper trail against me. And then last weekend, her parents came to visit, and that's when the wheels came off. I could tell something was up right away. Marissa was anxious, checking the clock every 5 minutes, pacing. And sure enough, the second her parents got there, they said they wanted to talk. Not small talk. Not a friendly visit. A sit-down discussion about the house. Her dad started by saying they were concerned about Marissa's future, how it wasn't right that she was living in a house with no legal protection. I explained, calmly, that I bought the house, I qualified for the mortgage, I made the down payment, and I'm the one paying it off. That's why my name's on the deed. End of story. But he brushed that off like it didn't matter. Said we're in a committed relationship and we should be building assets together. Then her mom chimed in and said they were willing to give Marissa money so she could contribute toward the house and gain some kind of ownership. I repeated what I told Marissa before, it doesn't work like that. You can't toss money at something retroactively and expect to rewrite history. But then her dad said something that seriously pissed me off. He looked me straight in the eye and said, if you're not willing to share ownership of the house, then maybe you're not as committed to this relationship as we thought. That hit a nerve. I told him, buying a house for us to live in was already a major commitment. It wasn't some casual thing. It was a huge financial decision, and I made it with both of us in mind. But he kept pushing, saying that keeping Marissa off the deed made it seem like I was treating her like a tenant, not a partner. So I explained, again, she's not paying rent. We split all the other bills 50-50. It's groceries, utilities, stuff like that. She's not being treated like a tenant. But then her mom added that they were worried I might break up with her or kick her out, and she'd have nowhere to go. That just lit a fire in me. I've never once given anyone a reason to think I'd do something like that. I told them if they're really that worried about Marissa's housing security, maybe they should help her save up and buy her own place, instead of trying to carve out ownership of mine. That's when the whole conversation went sideways. Voices were raised. Accusations flew. It stopped being a discussion and turned into a full-on confrontation. Then Marissa's dad hit me with the real zinger, said he thought I was being selfish and financially manipulative. That if I really loved Marissa, I'd want her to feel secure, too. I told him flat out that was way off base. I've been nothing but generous with Marissa. She's been living in a beautiful home, rent-free, sharing all the perks of homeownership without shouldering any of the risk. That's not selfish, that's someone going above and beyond. Meanwhile, Marissa barely said a word the entire time. Just sat there on the couch, staring at the floor, looking uncomfortable while her parents laid into me like I was some villain. Eventually, I had enough and told them this was between me and Marissa, and I didn't appreciate them butting into our personal business, especially when they clearly didn't have the full picture. But her dad just said Marissa had already explained everything and they understood the situation perfectly. That's when it really hit me she'd been talking to them behind my back this whole time, probably painting me out to be controlling or unfair. No wonder they came in swinging. After they left, Marissa and I had another blowout. I told her I couldn't believe she'd been dragging our private issues into conversations with her parents, basically inviting them to take sides against me. She said she just needed support from her family, that she didn't feel like I was hearing her concerns. I told her there's a big difference between asking your parents for emotional support and launching a full-blown campaign to pressure me into giving her part of my house. She swore that's not what she was doing, but I could see right through it. That's exactly what she was doing. She was lining up reinforcements, trying to force my hand by surrounding me with pressure and guilt. Then she said something that finally made everything click. She said if we ever broke up, she'd have nothing to show for all the time we spent together and all the money she'd put into our life. I reminded her that she saved thousands by not paying rent, that she shared a great life with me, trips, holidays, dinners, everything we've done together. That's what you get from a relationship, not equity. But she said that wasn't enough. And that's when I realized this wasn't about fairness. It wasn't even about security. It was about Marissa wanting something tangible out of the relationship, something she could walk away with if things fell apart. She was treating our relationship like a business deal, where she should walk away with a payout just for participating. I told her that's not how relationships work. That if she was already planning for a breakup, already thinking about how to protect herself from me, then maybe we shouldn't be in this relationship at all. She claimed that wasn't what she meant, but honestly, I think that's exactly what she meant. She wanted a safety net, my house, as insurance in case we didn't last. And ever since then, things between us have just gone cold. She spends most of her time either holed up in the bedroom or over at her sister's. And when we do talk, it's just about bills or groceries or whatever else needs handling. No warmth. No connection. Just awkward silence and logistics. And honestly, I'm starting to think we're already over. I just haven't said the words out loud yet. The fact that she went to a lawyer first, pulled in her parents, and tried to back me into a corner, it just shows me she doesn't trust me. And without trust, what kind of relationship is this? If she had come to me and said, hey, I'm feeling insecure about where I stand. Can we figure something out that makes us both feel good about the future? We probably could have worked something out. But that's not what she did. She went behind my back and tried to force the outcome she wanted. And that's not what partners do. I'm honestly grateful I found all this out now, before we got married, before kids, before things got even more complicated. At least now I can protect what's mine and not get dragged into a long legal nightmare just because I trusted the wrong person. Update 3. Marissa moved out yesterday. And while part of me is sad that it ended like this, mostly I just feel relieved. I know in my heart I made the right calls all the way through this mess. I stuck to my boundaries. I trusted my gut, even when people told me to just give in to keep the peace. After that last update, things just kept spiraling. Marissa barely spoke to me unless it was about the house, and even then, it was always something legal sounding. She was laser focused on wanting some kind of written agreement about equity or ownership. Then, about a week ago, she brought over this document. Said she'd worked on it with her lawyer. It was a whole cohabitation agreement, basically laying out how she'd gain partial ownership of the house based on her contributions to household expenses and future mortgage payments. She asked me to sign it, said it would make things fair and give her the security she needed. I read through the entire document she handed me, and it was clear as day, it was totally one-sided, all in her favor. It said she'd get a percentage of ownership based on what she paid toward the mortgage going forward, which is already a stretch, but whatever. The part that really floored me was where it claimed her past contributions, like paying for groceries, utility bills, and random household stuff, would count toward her equity in the house. That made zero sense. Groceries and electricity aren't mortgage payments. They're just part of living together. But the wildest part? There was a clause about what would happen if we broke up. It said I'd either have to buy out her share of the house at the current market value, or we'd be forced to sell the place and split the profits. So basically, if things went south, she could make me sell my own house just because she wanted a payout. I told her right then and there, absolutely not. No way I was signing that. She said if I wasn't willing to sign it, she couldn't stay in the relationship because she needed to protect herself financially. I told her that was fine. because I was done being painted as the bad guy just for not handing over ownership of something she didn't help me buy. She called me stubborn, said I was being unreasonable, and that every couple she knew shared major purchases. But I reminded her, most couples who buy a house together actually do it together. They both put money down. They both get approved for the mortgage. They both sign the deed. She didn't do any of that. And then she said something that really laid her whole mindset bare. She said she'd invested 3 years into our relationship and had helped me become the kind of man who could afford a house. So, in her eyes, she deserved to benefit from that investment. I just stared at her, stunned. Like, what? She was taking credit for my career? For the financial discipline I've practiced for years? I told her that was a ridiculous thing to say. I've worked my butt off to get where I am. Late nights, long hours, saving, planning. Her being in a relationship with me doesn't entitle her to what I've built. She backpedaled, said that wasn't what she meant, but it was. I could see it clear as day. She thought being supportive automatically made her entitled to my house. Like emotional support equals property rights. We had one last big fight after that. She accused me of never being truly committed, of just using her for sex while keeping all my assets locked away. I told her if being equal partners meant giving her stuff she didn't pay for, then yeah, maybe we weren't right for each other. That's when she started packing. Called her sister to help with the move. It took a couple of days to get all her things together, and the whole time she was acting like I'd kicked her out. But I never once told her to leave. That was her call. The night before she left, she made one last effort. Said maybe we could still fix things if I'd just be willing to compromise. I told her the truth. I did love her, and part of me still wanted to make it work. But I wasn't going to cave on this. I wasn't going to sign over legal ownership of my house just to keep the peace. If she couldn't accept that, maybe she was right. Maybe we weren't meant to be. After she left, I sat there in the quiet for a few hours. Felt empty. Sad. Like something really big had ended. But deep down, I felt relief too. Because I really believe I dodged a bullet. I mean, what if we had gotten married? Would she suddenly think she deserved half of everything I owned just because she supported me while I was building it? What if we had kids, and she used them to leverage more in a divorce? At least now I know. I know who she is when things don't go her way. And now I can move forward. And maybe one day, I'll find someone who actually wants me, not just the stuff I can give them.